Hi, I'm Dana Daniels, and this is Show and Tell. My guest today is Mr. Chip Romero with a fantastic collection he wants to show us. Hey, Chip, are you there?
Hello, Dana Daniels. Thank you for inviting me to show off some of my collection.
Oh, man, we're looking forward to it, Chip. I know that I've been to your house before, but I know you've added a lot of stuff to it since then, and I can't wait to see what you have to show.
All right. Well, you know what? Most people know me as the Doug Henning collector, so that's what we'll stay on. And I just love talking about Doug Henning because 45 years ago, Doug Henning changed magic forever. And I like to say that we're all still living in his world of magic. And
Wow.
So what I want to do is I want to show you some of Doug's pieces, some pieces that he made very popular that a lot of us magicians do now. And so let's just walk through a little bit of history. And like I said, feel free to ask any questions or anything, and I'll elaborate. And so let's just talk about Doug Henning.
Okay, looking forward to it. Take us on a little tour. It's just amazing how much stuff you have.
What Doug had done for magic, the big boom of magic was in 1974. So Doug had come over from Canada, and he had done a show in Canada called Spellbound. And Spellbound was popular, and that gave the funding and stuff for him to go on to what we call the magic show, or what we know as the magic show. That's when most of us were introduced to him. And this was the Time magazine collage that was in Time magazine. Now this was taken to be on the cover of Time magazine, but Nixon got caught with Watergate, and he took our boy off the cover.
Oh,
and I'm still mad about that
Nixon.
to this day.
Hey, Chip. Now the magic show was a Broadway show. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It was at the Court Theater in Broadway. Let's jump on this right here. This is the Owen. This is made by Owen Magic. It was made by Bill Schmelk, who would later go on to become Wellington Magic in New York. And in Wellington built a lot of stuff for different magicians. Again, Bill Schmelk. But when he worked for Owens, he actually made this sword suspension. And might as well say it, Mark Wilson had done this before on Magic Circus. But Doug had performed it on the Tonight Show, and Doug even had publicity about it. He would say in the newspapers, it would say magician won't reveal secret.
Yeah.
And that was his publicity machine. And they were talking about how, that he would never reveal this. And it was beautiful. His publicist even sent it out in 4 different newspapers at the same time. But this particular piece was given to me by Willie Kennedy when I bought a lot of Doug's stuff.
Wow.
And Willie said, we can't sell it. We don't have the plate, or we don't have the magic. I'm trying to keep it, we don't have the gimmicks to make it work.
You don't want to expose any secrets here.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, all those props in the background there, all the magic props in the cases and all that. Who is that? Doug Henning's, or is that something of yours? Or
all of this is just stuff. Is the best way to say it.
Okay,
in other words, that's magic that I did in school.
Oh,
But hey, this is not to do with Doug, but that is Harry Anderson's pig box. And
really?
That's one of my favorite all-time stories. We'll divulge from Doug just for a second.
Okay.
Harry Anderson, I believe, is the guy that put comedy magic on the map in my lifetime.
Okay, I know no argument there.
Say it again. Go ahead.
I said no argument for me on that. Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree? I mean, he was on Saturday Night Live and all that. I think he paved the way for a lot of comedy magicians.
Sure did.
Well, my favorite story is the pig box, and I just love saying it. He said he had Skippy on the Saturday Night Live, said he's gonna do something special for his. I think it was his 9th or 11th appearance, and he goes, "You're gonna do the animal magic."
Oh,
and little Skippy come out, and little Skippy wouldn't do it. And Harry said he figured out the routine, just driving back and forth to Owens.
Great.
And the pig box was also recommended by Les. He goes, "I got one of these pig boxes." And of course, when Harry decided to eat the guinea pig, he changed it all completely. Anyway, we just divulged from Harry. We'll go back to Doug.
Well,
this is Doug's very first brochure when he was like 17 years old, and you can see how clever he's going to be. Now, it looks like a little person, and it says, "Don't be in the dark concerning entertainment." And of course, if you flip it upside down, now that turns, I'm sorry about the shadow, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
And now that turns into hire a magician. And
wow.
And you can see Hindu. So Doug Henning, Hindu.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it turned into the rabbit in the
A
hat.
rabbit
So
out of
just-
the hat from him. Wow, that's very clever.
So just to tell you, even at 17 years old, this guy was just nuts. I mean, he was just that good.
Yeah.
This is the actual sawing that was in the magic show. And this, in my opinion, is again, for me, I mean, I was born in 63. And so to me, this is the definitive sawing in half.
That is.
It's what
Beautiful.
we always saw, those beautiful Owen legs.
Yeah. What a beautiful prop.
To tell the story when I first met Doug, and I won't tell it too long. But when I first saw Doug, he was standing on stage performing the fountain levitation.
The
And
fountain
so
levitation.
So I leave this costume out just because I like looking at it.
Oh, that's what he wore when he did the fountain levitation on the special?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
This is Doug's Metamorphosis from the second special. Doug had 2 of these. The other one that Doug used most of his career is in the collection of David Copperfield. So David and I each have a metamorphosis, and that's the sub trunks that Doug used.
Wow.
This was built for the special. This one is actually tricked out more than Doug's because it was for the special.
Okay.
And so, but metamorphosis. I mean, you and I, we can talk to other people as far as metamorphosis goes. The greatest performer of metamorphosis were the Pendragons.
Oh, no doubt. The fastest.
That's the Pendragons trunk.
You got the Pendragons trunk. Look at that. Man, how many times have I seen that on stage?
This could be, John Sherrock claims that this is the most iconic illusion in my collection. He says greatest illusion and greatest performance of it. And I'm not really going to argue with him. John and I love to talk about our 10 favorite moments in magic. And we honestly believe that in our lifetime that this is one of the top 10 moments.
Oh, no doubt. It's like even as magicians, we all know how metamorphosis is done. And then you saw the Pendragons do it, and you went, wait, what? It's so... And
it did.
They
It looked
really
like
changed it, and then everyone wanted to do it like them,
Sure. No, Pendragons, it looked like trick photography. It didn't look real.
Yeah.
Here's another one of what I consider one of the greatest moments in magic, and this is Doug's Fire Dome. And in the second special in 1976, a lot of us were doing what's commonly known as a crystal casket. I had one myself. And I guess when you're Doug Henning and you're doing specials, your team around you, and of course, as well as you go, I need something better. I need something more, more spectacular.
Yeah.
And with the help of Alan Wakeling, Dick Zimmerman, and John Gahn, they built this prop. And back then, in 76, it was lightning fast. I mean, they lit the thing on fire, they dropped the dome on top and put a sheet, and the girl appeared so quickly, you just had no idea not only where she'd come from, but how she even got there. I mean, it was an amazing piece at that time, and it still is as important today. The Fire Dome is done by magicians all over the world. And that was another one of Doug's brainchilds.
And what's that next to it? Is that the elevator?
All right. Now we're going to talk about my favorite illusion. This is my favorite. I'm going to set this down so I can talk in front of it. Let's see if I can do this. Can I do this?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good view of it.
Is that good right there?
Yeah.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you about this real quick. This is just my personal opinion, okay? I believe this to be one of the greatest illusions ever. And Copperfield performed one. So he must think it's pretty good too. But I always loved the idea of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I always thought like if I were a magician, I would have an elevator that could take me anywhere, and so that's why I love the trick so much. This was the first illusion that Jim Steinmeier sold to Doug Henning, and this was the first time that Steinmeier would get money plainly for an idea. And that also changed the course of illusions and magic. Of course, for many years, Jim Steinmeier's stuff was basically all you saw on television. Or not all you saw, but a lot of what you saw. Steinmeier was inventing all that stuff for Henning and Copperfield and Siegfried and Roy. So The elevator, of course, was shown empty, and then you see the magician's shadow come down, and he appears. And it's all about the point of arrival, but this is the first one. And later on in my life, I would have Jim Steinmeier and William Kennedy build one for me. So there's actually 2 elevators in this room.
Wow.
But this is Doug's, and this is the one that started it all. Again, just one of the greatest illusions ever. You know, some people say, "Oh, you should appear in a puff of smoke." Well, I don't really think so. I think if I was really a magician,
No.
I'd have one of these, and I could go anywhere I want. So
It was a great intro. Yeah, great opening illusion.
That was on the special in 1979.
Wow.
But to give you some idea, these props are so old, and like I said, they're still every bit as important today. So yeah, so that's the elevator.
Do you know? I got to meet Doug at the Magic Castle shortly before he was before he passed away. They had a party for him downstairs in the cellar there at the Magic Castle, downstairs area, and they had a comedy magic show, and it was Jeff Hobson and me doing the show.
Wow.
And it was in the Peller Theater, and Debbie and Doug were right there in the front row, and it was just a tremendous honor. And afterwards, Doug, he asked for my business card, and he says, "Oh, let's get together and have lunch and talk magic. I'm back in town. I want to get back in magic." Of course, only a few people knew that he was sick, and I was so excited, but I never got a call from him. And then just a few months later, he died. And
I'll bet he loved you, man. I'll bet he really
they had a great time. They loved Jeff, and they had a blast watching Luigi do his stuff, you know, and we got some laughs out of him. And so, knowing what he was going through, I didn't know at the time, it felt really good that, you know, we brought some laughter to him. And I don't know, that's probably the last magic show he ever saw, you know.
Well, it's crazy, and I've talked to a few people about it. And Jim talked to me about it as well, because I asked Jim one time, I said, "Was he really coming back?" And Jim said, "I don't think so." And I said, "Well, that's what he told everybody." And Jim said that was his way of coming back and saying goodbye.
Wow.
This is a trick. It's called, and again, we're not exposing, but this is called the disembodied princess. And this particular piece, Doug was placed in, and a blade was put through his neck, a blade was put through his legs, and his middle vanished. And so this is one of the versions that Willie had made, and it was on tour with Doug. This particular piece here, we all know this as Chuck Jones's The Mismade Girl. But Doug had performed Mismade Girl for many, many years, and this, of course, was Doug's. And Doug's equipment is quickly identified, because he had all these clouds and all these colors, and so nothing looks like a Doug Henning prop.
And what's the costume there? Was that Debbie's?
All right, so this is another prized possession. So this little guy right here was performed in the first special with Julie Newmar, of all people.
Oh,
now,
Catwoman.
Yes, sir. And on Collector's Corner, Copperfield had actually called in, and she called in as well. And we talked about this. I'm just going to jump on this real quick. This particular piece was invented many, many years ago by a magician named Cyril Yetma, and it's called The Lady from the Light. So to explain this to our non-magicians friends, Doug would open up the box, and you would see it was nothing but sheets or frames of paper. All 4 sides of this box is just paper. And he would open it up, and he would run a light around it, and you could see that there was absolutely nothing inside. And then all of a sudden, shadows began dancing on the front, and a girl burst out of the paper, and that was Julie Newmar. She was 5'11" at the time, or she's 5'11". She's the Catwoman as we all know her.
Yeah.
And this is the costume that she was wearing. And I just like showing the attention to detail. Doug had a really good budget. I mean, that is some serious beadwork there. And like I said, this costume is 45 years old.
Wow.
And so I often refer to the shadow box as the nightlight in my living room.
So Chip, sometimes late at night do you put it on?
No, I do not, because even though I'm skinny, I don't. I look, I've never put pantyhose on in my life, and I'm not going to today. But no, I can't. Even David Sandy said that. He goes, man, you don't try Doug's costumes on? No, I'm not that little. This is what some people would call a library. I don't really call this a library. What I call this is a room where all these guys are hanging out in here just dying to talk to me.
Wow.
For instance, Eugene Berger, he's not dead at all. Eugene Berger is doing quite well here. And of course, I knew Eugene when I was young, I knew him quite well. And so when I read these books, I read in Eugene's voice in my own head.
Yes.
So Eugene Berger's fine. He's doing just great. So I don't really think of my library as a bunch of old books. I think of Brother John Hammond is talking to me right now. All I got to do is pick this book up and look at it. And Brother John's dying to teach me something. He's dying to teach me something.
Wow.
Or Todd Carr can teach me about my history. Or I can go back over almost 100 years, about 150 years in here. I can go back in history and look at all my magazines, all of my Jim Steinmeier. If I ever want to hear from Jim, all I got to do is walk over here and open up any of these books, and his big old brain is right in there, and he teaches me stuff all the time.
That's fantastic.
That's just my views on things. In other words, I just kind of think that all those guys are in there wanting to talk to me. This is the actual tape that played at NBC when you and I watched the special in our homes.
Really?
So that is the 1981 television special. That's what was played at NBC when we watched it.
Wow. You have an amazing collection, not just the tricks, but what's that?
No, boss, I'm only scratching this. Trust me, Dana, we could do this for hours. That's Doug's college ID.
And you got that from the family, I guess, right?
Everything, boss. I've got his baby pictures, everything. I've got it's insane, but what all I've got.
A little obsessed.
Well, yeah. Okay. What I like saying about Doug, and I've talked with a lot of guys a lot older and smarter than me, and before December 26, 1975, Magic was kind of just around. It was kind of just in limbo. It was nice for the kids. Les Arnold will even tell you that the only guys that were really working was like Chuck Jones and Marvin Roy, Mr. Electric. There was a club scene, but Magic just kind of was just kind of nothing. And so December 26, 1975, this little guy shows up on TV. And as I've said, if you were to read his notes on how he felt about Magic, Doug Henning truly believed that Magic is in this world, meaning he knows there's real magic. He believes in his heart that real magic is somewhere in this world and he's going to find it. And I believe that belief in him is what catapulted him through that television into your living room, and you literally thought you were talking to him.
Oh, yeah.
And you know this as well as I do. You watched it year after year, and like you said, we couldn't wait for these specials. I just couldn't wait. Oh, my God. Oh, Doug's coming. Oh, my. And oh, man, I hope nobody else had anything to watch at that time, because I was going to watch that.
He knew when he talked, he was very sincere.
Very sincere, and also talking with other people. Doug was the exact same person on stage and off stage.
That's right. Well, Chip, thanks for showing everything. And, I can't think of a better person to take care of the legacy of Doug Henning. Someone who loves him and has passion for him. And we know it's all safe with you. And it's just what a special treat to be able to see some of that.
I really thank you for asking me. And hey, if you come up with anything else, don't hesitate to ask again.
Well, thanks, Chip. It's been just a lot of fun. And everyone say goodbye to Chip. Bye, Chip.
Thank you very much, boss. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.